Hate is like a virus. It spreads throughout humanity, but it begins in a single heart. It can spread to other hearts, but it must start in one before it can spread to another. Now, what is hate? It is that frustration of not being in control of the world, not being able to basically bring somebody to your level of understanding, whether it be higher or lower. In actuality, much of the time, if one is hateful, it's much lower. But also it has to do with one's desire to feed off of anger, because it's easier to feed off anger. Anger is easy to embrace. Anger is your best friend in the moment. But as anger flourishes in you over time, it basically produces a force in you that saps all of your energy into that, developing into ultimately into hate, a strong hate. And the reason anger saps our energy is because anger takes a lot of our spiritual energy. The natural energy we feel from our spirit is very much sapped by anger. And there's very few avenues the energy can take if anger is embraced. So it mainly goes to anger. The spirit only has a certain amount of energy in one lifetime. And, spiritual practices can basically preserve this energy, but the spirit in and of itself, not to be confused with the soul is actually different. The spirit is the energy we have for a lifetime. It is limited. And if we choose anger, it draws all that energy towards just the fulfillment of whatever angry desire that anger produces, usually understood as hate. Hate is angry desire. It's a plan for anger. It's a avenue for anger to continue on after the emotion of anger kind of blooms. It's a source. It's a further pollination and continuance of its kind of species. All these different angry thoughts kind of transfer to different hateful thoughts, and those hateful thoughts are more concrete than anger. They're more set in ideology than anger is. Anger is more emotional, but hate is it's very disturbingly foundational to ideology, and we're much more likely to accept an ideology that is hateful if we have this hate that developed from the angry emotions that we had in response to incorrect responses to whatever happens in the world, or happens to us a lot of the time. And usually, well, all of the time, ignorance is what allows anger to be developed. Because if somebody slights us, we think that, okay, everybody like this person is bad, everybody like this person is evil, everybody like this person should be shunned and hated and fought. But that is being very selective based on your experiences with a particular kind of person. That person just happens to be in part of whatever group or ethnicity or gender that their circumstances basically influenced. But karmically, reincarnation, or just the kind of person that they grew up as. But that doesn't mean that everybody else that is in the categories that person is in is just as bad. And it doesn't even mean that it was completely that person's fault that you felt hurt, that you felt slighted. But then that develops, if we accept that, okay, everybody like this person is bad, that develops into a hatred for everybody that is like that person, whether everybody like that person has the characteristics that one person had. We can't label an entire group just because we experience a bad relationship with one. And even if we experience a bad relationship with one, there's something to be said for a misunderstanding. A lot of the time, it is misunderstanding. It's not about that person even being bad. That when we understand a person as being bad just because we have one bad interaction that did something to us, as long as it's not too extreme, like rape, or they just beat you up, or they really just assailed you in public with insults, we should always try to err on the side of caution and not try to hate, not try to be angry. We should try to understand and see, maybe that person was having a bad day, maybe we misunderstood them, or maybe we shouldn't even care. And that's very important, because we shouldn't care even if that person is hateful towards us or discriminatory towards us, we shouldn't care, because then your state of mind is being affected by somebody that you don't even like. Will you let them do that? I think that's a terrible idea if you want to let them do that. Now, basically, what can stop these arrows from spreading to other people if a person is basically set on being the dark flower of hate, blooming that hatred within themselves, allowing that anger to form this hateful development, and basically it blooms in fearful hearts because the fear is that this will happen again, and I can't let this happen again, so let me develop a system of defense that is hateful, so that my emotional defenses will be up if somebody like this tries to assail me again, emotionally with words. Very rarely is hate correct in thinking that they're going to assail you physically. Most of the time, it's you just thinking that they're going to assail you physically, but really it's an emotional reaction to your fears that they will. Now, what can stop this hateful influence coming from a single person is basically understanding. Understanding, compassion, kindness, calm, self-worth. Never let anybody take away your self-worth, no matter what they say. Battle guard against anger and hatred. Love for peace. Loving peace can be a great weapon against the angry and the hateful, because loving peace is basically gives you the strength to say, okay, just because you want me to go to war with you, I'm not going to. You want me to go to war with you. You want me to respond and be affected by whatever you did, but I'm not going to, because I love peace. Kindness is just in and of itself, and basically an end in and of itself. If you want to be kind just because that is the right thing to do, that's what kindness is. If there's no reason to be kind, you just want to be kind. You want to help other people. I would say that kindness is kind of one of the purest virtues, because it's just in and of itself. It exists by itself. It doesn't need a reason. Kindness can be its own reason. Now, compassion, that's more of a broad statement. Compassion is kind of like, without basically saying something that I've already said, compassion is an understanding that everything is connected in the universe, and that every single part is necessary, and every single part is valuable, and every single part should be treated with the utmost respect, despite what every part does. And especially if one of those parts does something wrong, one of those parts they can choose, like sentient beings like humans. Understanding, just try to understand where people come from, try to understand where they're at now, why they might have done what they've done, and try to help them based on that understanding. And self-worth, if you have a certain amount of self-worth, if you feel that you are valuable, it's very unlikely somebody will be able to hurt you with some kind of emotional direction they send your way. Anger, hate, just frustration that they direct at you. It's very unlikely that you'll be hurt by it if you have a large level of self-worth. Now, I will say 2 more points, and honestly, I kind of forgot the last 2 that I had in mind earlier, but let's go ahead and go with virtue of... It's going to be kind of hard to read, but patience. So this one is virtue of patience. So the virtue of patience is basically being patient with somebody, even if they come at you with hate or anger, or if they come at you with physical blows. Doesn't mean that you can't defend yourself. It just means that be patient with that person. Don't condemn them no matter how they approach you, whether it's emotional or physical or whatever. Defend yourself, of course, but be patient with whoever that person is, because most of the time when somebody comes at you, it's going to be with verbal and emotional statements that want to tear you apart if they're working off of anger and hate. So just be patient with them and try to figure out why they're doing this. And maybe you might find something you have in common, and maybe you can help them out. Now, virtue of patience and personal confidence. Now, personal confidence is actually a little bit different than self-worth. Personal confidence basically means that you are confident in who you are and your beliefs and why you do what you do. So no matter what anybody says, you know you are this person that you are. And even if you don't quite know who you are, you can work that out later. You're as long as you're on the path, you realize that you're working towards it. And no matter what anybody else says, you should remain at the same point on your path and keep on moving forward, of course, but don't let somebody who has anger and hatred in their heart spread that to you and make you doubt yourself just because they have anger and hatred. Continue your way along the path regardless of what somebody says to you. That's what personal confidence means. It's a personal understanding of where you are, where you're headed, and the fact that nobody can tell you where you're going and how you're going to get there. You have to find that. You have to find that road for yourself, and you have to travel it yourself. Now, these are shields. These are basically shields against. These are shields against the dark flower of hate, which is the more developed form of anger, basically. And this is basically all I got to say about this topic. I'm really happy if you made it this far, that you followed me all the way to this point. And I hope that some of my comments on hate and anger developing into hate, has helped you, and maybe you have some ideas on how to deal with it. And feel free to shoot down some comments down in the comment section, and ask questions, or if you want to continue the discussion, just let me know. And I will see all of you in the future.